Stephanie Ellis is a Wrexham-based writer of dark fiction and Riesling and Elgin Award-nominated poet. Her publications include novellas, Paused and Bottled, folk horror novels, The Five Turns of the Wheel, Reborn and The Woodcutter, Axes, Axes, and the post-apocalyptic SF, The Barricade. Stephanie, it's yours.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone, when you get to them, that is. The Yule Log and the Mare is my Five Turns universe folk horror take on Charles Dickens' ghosts of past, present, and future. So the Yule Log and the Mare. The houses of Salisbury were dressed in their finest Christmas attire. Sitting rooms were festooned with garlands from nature, the green of holly and ivy and citrus-scented boughs of pine. There were no trees such as you might find in the rest of the country. Each village of the world was permitted one Christmas tree and one tree only, sited on the green between church and pub. Steve and Kim stood with their children, Cindy and Max, staring up at the huge fir. Nobody ever saw it arrive. It just appeared each year on the morning of Christmas Eve and vanished 12 days later. Steve shivered, cast a longing look at the windows of the Yew Tree Inn. Its landlord would open its doors when the Yule log was brought to warm the open fireplace inside, and not before. They had to wait for the mare race to walk for that. There were rules when it came to celebrating Christmas in the world. You ignored them at your peril. The thought made him feel even colder. Their children fidgeted at their side. It was the same for all the families. They would bring out their youngsters to see the tree, and then return indoors as quickly as possible. "Can we decorate it?" asked Cindy, gazing up at the tree which soared above her. Max was already reaching up to sprinkle a few holly berries onto its lower branches. "No," said Kim, pulling Max's hand back sharply, scattering the berries on the ground so they looked like drops of blood. Max began to cry. "I'll take them back inside," said Kim. "Christmas is no time for children." Steve watched them disappear behind the front door of their cottage. He longed to join them, but his place was here on the edge of the green, on a cold and depressingly dark Christmas Eve. Others kept him company, all as unwilling as he. Each had received the mare's summons. There were 12 of them circling the tree, Wayne on his left, Michelle and Ellen on his right, his sister-in-law Tracy a little further along. His brother had stood there last year. Now she took his place. They avoided looking at one another, all frantically comparing their past behaviour against their neighbours. None could claim a halo. The door to the yew tree swung open, and George appeared. He was the only one who seemed relaxed and happy. George was brother to Simon Wheelborn of the Five Turns Inn at Cropsey. The Wheelborn were exempt from this little tradition. No matter what they got up to, the unfairness rankled. He caught scent of something, burning wood. Ellen whimpered, but to her credit soon returned to silence. As the flame appeared at the top of the lane, he steeled himself to sing the song of welcome to the mare. Steve did not want to appear weak. He did not want to be chosen. The smell of burning grew stronger. He tried not to look but couldn't help himself. The mare carried the Yule log in its arms as if no more than a toy. Its flames barely touched its carrier. The mare, this was a spirit from Umbra, a wraith which marked the land, the people of the world, for its own. The mare barely had a form, flowed in and out of sight as it drifted inside the yew tree. George remained outside, allowed the mare to do what it had to do. When the mare reappeared, a gentle orange glow lit the windows, an invitation to enter. Then came the music. From the direction from which the mare had appeared, golden notes danced towards the group on the green. Fiddler. They all recognised the sound of this Umbra monster. His music was festive, enough to lift even the most desolate of spirits. For those around the tree, it did nothing but scare them further. The temperature dropped as the mare made its way to the green. Steve noticed George slip quickly back inside his pub. No doubt the man had no desire to witness events. It meant he could sleep with an easy conscience. Do you remember last year? Tony, whispered Ellen. Shh, hissed Steve. But he could hear the terror in her voice. It matched his own. Cold wrapped itself around him. Wisps of fingers touched his shoulders. The mare was behind him. But it wasn't this spectre which could harm him, although it might mark him out. It was Tommy. No matter what he said, it was always Tommy who would choose. By this time, the mare had taken up position in the centre of the circle and was stood beside the tree. The decorating would only begin when the chosen had celebrated in the traditional way, when they had been taken. The music of fiddler drew nearer, and a figure dressed in white, a monster sporting the faked wings of an angel, danced in front of him. Betty. They were here then. Almost time. He straightened and found himself looking into the eyes of a man clad in patchworked animal skin. Tommy. Tommy, Betty, and Fiddler. He shouldn't have been surprised. Christmas was, after all, a time for family. Yours greetings, cried Tommy. Welcome. The 12 remained silent. Ellen looked as though she was about to run. Unlike the rest of them, she hadn't been through this before. Why so quiet? This is a time of celebration. Fiddler, play them a song, something traditional. Fiddler stepped into the centre of the circle, ignored the mare, and proceeded to bow the strings. Steve recognised the tune. God rest ye merry gentlemen. The irony was not lost on him. There was no God in these parts, and none of them were feeling very merry. No? Asked Tommy, smiling at them. At least the mare here appreciates Fiddler's efforts. The mare indeed seemed to be enjoying the music, was shifting and swirling around the tree. Never mind, said Tommy. To business. Fiddler stopped immediately. The sudden silence was Damoclesian. The air had turned sharp, become an invisible blade, grazing his face. When the mare approaches, you do not look at its face. An instruction passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, since time immemorial. They had never said why, but in the world such warnings were always taken seriously. Failure to observe them was often disastrous. As a child, Steve had snatched forbidden peeks at the green through the crack of the door, the glimmer between curtains. Each occasion had been accompanied by a swift clip round the ear, followed by a hug and the extraction of a promise never to look again. One day, his father had said, you'll be spotted, and then you will wait the rest of your life for the summoning. During this time, everything you do, every thought, every idea, will be known and weighed against you. When the scales tip, then you will be summoned. The years had passed, and Steve had dismissed the memory as mere old wives' tales, and there were a lot of those in the village, even amongst the men. He should have listened. He'd been summoned for the past 2 years and escaped unharmed. Would this be third time lucky? He thought of his father's words and began to weigh his past for himself. In the tally of rights and wrongs, where had he been found wanting? And that's the start of my story, The Yule Log and the Mare.